My mother's letter cut me out of the will for my sister Claire, and when they demanded half my $75 million 0 cents empire at my door, my lawyer stepped in with a secret that could unravel everything. The rain was relentless that night, hammering against the glass walls of my San Francisco loft like it was trying to break in. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city blur into streaks of neon and shadow, my reflection a ghost against the storm. My name is Olivia Bennett, and at 36, I'd built Horizon Innovations into a $50 million 0 cents cybersecurity empire in the heart of Silicon Valley. But that night, as lightning cracked the sky, I held a certified letter in my trembling hands, a letter from my own mother that didn't just threaten to unravel everything I'd fought for, but promised to burn it to the ground. It wasn't just words on paper. It was a declaration of war from the people who were supposed to love me most, my family, my blood, and they wanted half of everything I'd bled for, claiming I owed them for a life they'd barely acknowledged me in. Let me take you back to where it all began, to the quiet, rain-soaked streets of suburban Seattle, where I grew up in a split-level house on a cul-de-sac with a view of Puget Sound. The air always smelled faintly of lavender from my parents' backyard garden, a hobby they poured more love into than they ever did me. Susan and David Bennett, my mother and father, were the picture of middle-class respectability. A school teacher and an insurance agent, comfortable but never wealthy. Our home was modest, with faded beige carpets and a kitchen that always smelled like Mom's overcooked casseroles. It was the kind of place where neighbors waved and nobody locked their doors. But inside those walls, I learned early on that I was the afterthought in a family obsessed with my younger sister, Claire. Claire was 5 years younger, the golden child with her dimpled smile and curls that seemed to glow under any light. She was their sun, their moon, their entire damn galaxy. Me? I was the shadow trailing behind, always a step too slow to catch their attention. I remember being 8, standing in our living room on Christmas morning, unwrapping a second-hand bicycle with chipped red paint and a wobbly front wheel. I forced a smile, but my eyes kept darting to Claire, who was squealing over a custom dollhouse with tiny working chandeliers and a miniature spiral staircase. "It's what she wanted," Mom said, brushing off my disappointment like dust. "You're practical, Olivia. You don't need all that fuss." That was the mantra of my childhood. Olivia, the practical one. Claire, the special one. It wasn't just gifts. My straight-A report cards, earned through late nights studying under a dim desk lamp, got a curt, "nice work" from Dad before he turned back to his Seahawks game. But when Claire brought home a B in art, they whisked her off to a waterfront restaurant to celebrate her creative genius. I poured my heart into soccer, captaining my high school team to the state championships, but my parents never showed up, claiming work conflicts. Meanwhile, they rearranged their schedules for Claire's piano recitals, clapping like she was performing at Carnegie Hall when she fumbled through Fur Elise. Birthdays were the worst. My 12th was a store-bought chocolate cake with uneven frosting and a $10 0 cents bookstore gift card. Claire's 12th? A carnival-themed extravaganza in our backyard, complete with a petting zoo, a cotton candy machine, and a professional photographer to capture her blowing out candles shaped like her initials. I hid in my room that night, pressing my face into my pillow to muffle the tears. I told myself I didn't care, but the ache in my chest said otherwise. The only person who ever saw me, really saw me, was my grandmother, Eleanor. She was a legend in her own right, a software engineer who'd coded mainframes in the 1970s when Silicon Valley was just a cluster of orchards and dreamers. Her Palo Alto cottage was my sanctuary, filled with the hum of vintage computers and the warm scent of her famous oatmeal cookies. Every weekend, I could escape to her place. I did. She'd sit me at her kitchen table, her gray eyes sharp behind thick glasses, and teach me to code on an ancient Commodore 64. "Build your own empire, Olivia," she'd say, her voice steady as steel. "Never let anyone dim your spark. The world will try, but you're stronger than that." Eleanor didn't just teach me coding. She taught me to believe in myself when no one else did. While we debugged lines of BASIC, she'd share stories of her own battles, being the only woman in smoky boardrooms, outsmarting men who underestimated her. "Some people will hate your light because it exposes their shadows," she told me once, her hand steady on the keyboard. I didn't know then that she was talking about my own mother, her daughter, who seemed to resent my every ambition. By high school, I'd accepted my place in the family pecking order and channeled every ounce of energy into carving my own path. I joined every tech club, from robotics to hackathons, and kept a 4 GPA while working nights at a computer repair shop in downtown Seattle. The shop was in a gritty strip mall, and I'd bike home after midnight, my backpack heavy with tools and dreams. One night, at 19, I nearly lost everything. A car screeched to a stop beside me, two men in ski masks jumping out, demanding my bag. My laptop was inside, stuffed with early prototypes of code that would later become Horizon's foundation. I clutched it to my chest, heart pounding, and ran, zigzagging through alleys until I lost them. I collapsed against a dumpster, gasping, realizing how close I'd come to losing my future. That scare didn't stop me. I earned a full scholarship to Stanford's computer science program, a ticket out of Seattle and into the heart of Silicon Valley. My parents came to my high school graduation, but they left halfway through to drive Claire to a dance competition 2 hours away. "You'll be fine, Olivia," Dad said, barely looking at me as they hurried out. I stood on the stage, clutching my valedictorian medal, pretending their absence didn't sting. Stanford was a revelation. I thrived in lecture halls buzzing with ideas, surrounded by people who saw code as poetry, not just a job. But my sophomore year brought a blow I wasn't ready for. Eleanor died in a house fire that consumed her cottage. The fire marshal called it an accident, faulty wiring, but I couldn't shake the suspicion it was more. Eleanor had been arguing with my parents over her estate, refusing to let them control her assets. She'd hinted at a secret trust fund, something she'd set up to protect her legacy, but she never shared details. At her funeral, I stood alone by her casket, tears streaming, while Mom fussed over floral arrangements and Claire sobbed theatrically, despite barely visiting Eleanor in years. 2 weeks later, Eleanor's lawyer called. She'd left me $50,000, 0 cents, and her collection of vintage computers, rare machines from the dawn of tech, worth a small fortune to collectors. "She was adamant this goes to you, Olivia," the lawyer said. "No one else." When I told my parents, Susan's voice turned to ice. "I'm her daughter. I deserve something. You should share with Claire. She's grieving." Dad chimed in. "Don't be selfish, Olivia. Family comes first." I held firm, clutching Eleanor's bequest like a lifeline. For once, someone had chosen me, and I wasn't letting go. That decision cracked the family apart. Susan stopped calling. Dad's emails dwindled to holiday greetings. I buried myself in Stanford, finding a new family in my roommate, Mia, and my boyfriend, Ethan, a cybersecurity prodigy with a knack for spotting vulnerabilities. digital and human. Mia was the sister I'd always wanted, staying up late to debate startup ideas over instant ramen. Ethan taught me encryption tricks that would later define Horizon's edge. For the first time, I felt seen, not as Claire's shadow, but as Olivia, the woman who could change the world. After graduation, I joined a failing startup in San Jose, scraping by in a shoebox apartment where sirens were my nightly lullaby. I saw a gap in the market. Small businesses needed affordable, AI-driven cybersecurity, not clunky enterprise systems. With Eleanor's $50,000, 0 cents, I founded Horizon Innovations, registering the company from a folding table in my apartment. The early days were brutal, coding until dawn, surviving on coffee and sheer grit. One night I stayed late at my rented office, a dingy space above a taqueria. At 2 a.m. the door splintered open. 2 masked men stormed in, ripping hard drives from my desk and stealing prototypes that held 6 months of work. As they fled, one dropped a note, "Stop or pay." My heart raced. Someone didn't want Horizon to succeed. I reported it to the police, but with no leads, I was left rebuilding from scratch, paranoia creeping into every late-night session. The first software launch was a disaster. Servers crashed within hours, and my 3 beta clients, small retailers betting on me, threatened to sue. I locked myself in my apartment, staring at error logs, wondering if Mom was right. Maybe I was chasing a pipe dream. But Eleanor's voice echoed, "Failure is just data for your next success." I fixed the bugs, sleeping 4 hours in 2 days, and relaunched. Slowly, clients came back. Everything changed at a San Francisco tech conference. I pitched Horizon to a room of skeptical investors, my voice shaking but my demo flawless. Rachel Harper, a venture capitalist who'd sold her own startup for $200 million, 0 cents, pulled me aside. "You've got something special," she said, her eyes sharp. "But you're playing small. Think bigger." Rachel became my mentor, introducing me to a national bank desperate for my AI SAT contract, $500,000, 0 cents, over 2 years. Let me quit my day job, lease a sleek Menlo Park office, and hire 5 coders who believed in my vision. We celebrated our first big win with cheap pizza and cheaper wine, toasting to a future I could finally see. But the break-in haunted me. I started digging, and what I found chilled me. Lines of code in my crashed launch matched sabotage techniques used by a rival firm, Nexus Corp. They were a tech giant with a history of crushing startups like mine. Ethan helped me trace the digital fingerprints, confirming the bugs weren't accidents. Someone was watching Horizon, someone who'd already broken in once and might try again. I installed new security systems, but the threat lingered, a shadow over every line of code I wrote. I tried to reconnect with my family, hoping success would bridge the gap. I flew to Seattle for Thanksgiving, eager to share Horizon's progress. Over turkey, I explained my AI platform, but Dad cut me off. "Tech's a fad, Olivia. You need a pension, not a startup." Claire, now a part-time influencer posting selfies and borrowed designer clothes, smirked. "Not everyone wants to live in their laptop live." I left early, the rejection stinging more than I'd expected. Claire's wedding to Ryan, a slick crypto trader with a Rolex and a shady smile, was a spectacle. My parents bankrolled a waterfront venue, a live band, and a dress that cost more than my first car. I sat at a table with distant cousins, watching Mom fuss over Claire's veil, while Dad toasted her perfect future. My phone buzzed with work emails. Horizon was gaining traction, but I felt invisible, a guest at my own family's celebration. Then Horizon hit the big time. We won a Global Innovation Award, and TechCrunch put me on their cover, calling me the future of cybersecurity. Suddenly, my parents' calls flooded in. "We saw your article," Susan gushed. "We always knew you'd make it." It was a lie. They'd never cared, but I let it slide. Then came the hints. Dad's tough year at work, the house needing a new roof, Claire's failed influencer campaign leaving her in debt. I ignored the bait. But a small part of me, the kid who'd once craved their approval, wondered if I should help. That hope died on my 36th birthday. The day started perfectly, a sunrise run along the bay, brunch with Mia, and dinner plans at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Then the certified letter arrived. Its Connecticut postmark a gut punch. I tore it open, expecting a card. Instead, it was a single page of Susan's crisp stationery, her words like a blade. "Dear Olivia, after careful consideration, your father and I have updated our will. Everything will go to Claire. She has a growing family and needs support more than you. Your success, while fortunate, owes much to luck and others' help. We're informing you to avoid future disputes. No response is necessary. Regards, Susan Bennett." No happy birthday, no love mom, just regards, like I was a stranger. My hands shook, the paper rattling in my quiet loft. The dismissal of my work as luck cut deeper than the disinheritance. I'd built Horizon from nothing, nights without sleep, risks that nearly broke me, and they reduced it to a fluke. I called Mia, sobbing, and she was at my door in 20 minutes. "They're toxic, Liv," she said, pouring me wine. "You don't need them." But the betrayal burned, a wound I didn't know how to heal. Then it got worse. A cousin's Instagram post revealed Dad had cancer, a secret they'd kept from me. A will reading was scheduled, and I wasn't invited. I called Susan, my voice tight. "Why didn't you tell me about Dad or the will?" Her reply was cold. "You're too busy with your little startup, Olivia. We didn't want to burden you." Little startup? Horizon employed 30 people, protected banks nationwide. "It's decided," she added, hanging up. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, feeling erased. The final blow came when Dad died. I found out through a cousin's text, not a call from my mother. At the funeral, I slipped into a back pew at Seattle's First Presbyterian, avoiding the family's front row. Claire wailed, leaning on Ryan, while Susan sat stone-faced. No one acknowledged me. At the reception, Ryan cornered me by the coat rack. "Don't even think about contesting the will," he hissed. "It's airtight and will bury you in court." His eyes were hard, calculating, and I wondered what he was hiding. Driving back to San Francisco, tears blurred the I-5. I vowed to protect what I'd built, but the threats were closer than I knew. Late one night, my phone lit up with an anonymous text. "Back off the estate, or you'll lose more than money." My heart raced. Was this Ryan? Nexus? Someone else? I checked my security cameras, but the figure lurking outside my loft was gone, leaving only fear in their wake. The San Francisco fog clung to my skin like a second shadow as I stood outside my vandalized loft, staring at the words, "Greedy Traitor," spray painted in crimson across my front door. It was 2 a.m., and the Mission District was eerily quiet, save for the distant wail of a siren. My heart pounded, not just from the violation of my home, but from the realization that the threats were escalating. Maybe Ryan, maybe Nexus Corp, maybe someone I hadn't even suspected was closing in. And they weren't just after my money, they wanted to break me. I'm Olivia Bennett, and I'd built Horizon Innovations into a $50 million, 0 cents cybersecurity empire. But now at 36, I was fighting a war on two fronts, against a family that had disowned me and against an unseen enemy who seemed to know my every move. I called my lawyer, Michael Grant, before the police. "Don't touch anything," he said, his voice clipped but steady. "I'm sending a private investigator, and I'll be there by dawn." As I waited, I snapped photos of the graffiti, my hands shaking, and scanned the street for any sign of the culprit. Nothing but fog and the flicker of a street lamp. Inside, I poured a glass of bourbon, the burn grounding me as I replayed the last few weeks. My father's death, my mother's cold letter cutting me from their will, Ryan's threats at the funeral, and those anonymous texts warning me to back off the family estate. The vandalism wasn't random. It was a message, and I was running out of time to decode it. By sunrise, Michael arrived with his investigator, a wiry ex-cop named Lena Torres. She surveyed the scene with a predator's focus, bagging paint chips and dusting for prints. "This is an amateur," she said, pointing to the precision of the lettering. "Whoever did this planned it. You got cameras?" I nodded, pulling up my security app, but the footage from last night was corrupted. "Scrambled by a signal jammer," Lena guessed. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a grudge. It was a calculated strike. "Any enemies?" Lena asked, her pen poised. I laughed bitterly. "Where do I start? My family, a rival tech firm, maybe a ghost from my past?" She didn't smile. "Narrow it down, Olivia. Someone's got a motive, and they're not playing games." I gave her everything. The office break-in 2 years ago, the sabotaged car brakes that nearly sent me off a Silicon Valley cliff, the stalking after Dad's funeral. I told her about Nexus Corp's $75 million 0 cents offer to buy Horizon, a deal I was still negotiating, and Ryan's shady crypto tie. Lena's eyes narrowed when I mentioned the encrypted files I'd found on my grandmother Eleanor's vintage computer. Files hinting at a hidden trust fund my parents had tried to bury. "That's a lead," she said. "Money makes people desperate. I'll dig into your family's finances and Nexus's dirty laundry. Until then, get a bodyguard." A bodyguard? The idea felt absurd, but the paint on my door said otherwise. I hired one through Lena's contacts, a former Marine named Marcus who shadowed me silently, his presence both reassuring and unnerving. My loft felt like a cage now, so I threw myself into work, locking myself in Horizon's Menlo Park office to finalize the Nexus deal. My team, 5 coders who'd been with me since the pizza and wine days, sensed the tension but didn't pry. "You okay, Liv?" asked Priya, my lead developer, her dark eyes searching. I forced a smile. "Just family drama. Keep the servers humming." She nodded, but I caught her glance at Marcus standing by the door. The Nexus negotiations were a high-wire act. Their CEO, Victor Lang, was a tech titan, with a smile like a shark and a reputation for swallowing startups whole. In our video call, he leaned back in his glass-walled office, his Rolex glinting. $75 million? 0 cents is generous, Olivia. Horizon's a gem, but you're a small fish in a big pond. Take the deal, join our board, and let us handle the predator. His tone was smooth, but the word predators hit like a warning. Was he talking about competitors? Or me? I pushed back, demanding job guarantees for my team and a larger equity stake. I built Horizon from nothing, I said. I'm not handing it over unless it's bulletproof. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Careful, Olivia. Nothing's bulletproof in this game. That night, I cracked open Eleanor's old computer, a 1980S IBM PC with a clunky green screen monitor. The encrypted files I'd found weeks ago were a puzzle protected by a cipher I hadn't broken. Ethan, my ex-boyfriend and cybersecurity guru, had moved back to San Francisco, so I called him for help. He showed up at my office after hours, his familiar lopsided grin easing my nerves. "You're in deep, Liv," he said, plugging a USB drive into the ancient machine. "This encryption's military grade. Your grandma was hiding something big." Hours later, he cracked it, revealing a folder labeled Legacy. Inside were scanned documents, a trust fund worth $10 million, 0 cents, set up by Eleanor for me, with a clause barring my parents from touching it. There were also emails between Susan and a shady lawyer discussing ways to forge documents to redirect the funds to Claire. My blood ran cold. My parents hadn't just disowned me. They'd tried to steal my grandmother's legacy. "Why didn't Eleanor tell me?" I whispered, staring at the screen. Ethan shrugged. "Maybe she wanted you to find it when you were ready to fight for it." But the discovery came with a new threat. A hidden file titled Warning, containing a grainy photo of Eleanor's cottage the night it burned. A shadowy figure stood in the foreground, holding what looked like a gas can. My heart stopped. The fire wasn't an accident. Someone had wanted Eleanor silenced, and now they were coming for me. I'd barely slept, haunted by that image. The next morning, Marcus drove me to a client meeting in Palo Alto, but on the way, my phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "You're digging too deep. Stop, or you'll end up like her." I showed it to Marcus, who gripped the wheel tighter. "We're changing routes," he said, veering onto a side street. Minutes later, a black SUV tailgated us, its tinted windows hiding the driver. Marcus floored it, weaving through traffic, but the SUV matched us, ramming our bumper. My scream caught in my throat as we skidded toward a guardrail. Marcus swerved at the last second, the SUV roaring past, but not before I glimpsed a partial license plate. "Call Lena," Marcus barked, his calm cracking. I dialed, my voice shaking as I relayed the attack. "Get to a safe house," Lena said. "I'm running that plate now." The safe house was a nondescript condo in Oakland, its windows shuttered and its walls lined with security monitors. Lena met us there, her face grim. "The SUV's registered to a shell company tied to Ryan's crypto network," she said. "Your brother-in-law's not just a sleaze. He's connected to some dangerous players." She handed me a dossier on Ryan. Failed crypto scams, ties to offshore accounts, and rumors of money laundering. But the real shock was a photo of Ryan meeting Victor Lang at a private club last year. "Nexus and your family might be in bed together," Lena warned. "This isn't just about the trust fund. They want Horizon." The revelation hit like a tidal wave. My family's greed wasn't just personal. It was a conspiracy, tangled with corporate espionage and maybe even murder. I wanted to confront Susan, to scream at her for betraying Eleanor, for betraying me, but Lena stopped me. "They're baiting you, Olivia. Stay focused. We need evidence." She was right, but the rage burned, fueling my next move. I called Michael, demanding a plan to protect the trust fund and expose Ryan's net. "File an injunction to freeze the estate," he said, "and let me subpoena Nexus's financials. If they're dirty, we'll find it." But the danger didn't stop. 2 nights later, at the safe house, the power cut out, plunging us into darkness. Marcus grabbed his gun, motioning me to stay low. Footsteps crunched outside, and a window shattered downstairs. "Stay here," he whispered, slipping into the hall. My pulse thundered as I crouched behind a couch, clutching my phone. A beam of light swept the room. Someone was inside. I texted Lena. "Intruder, help." Seconds later, gunshots rang out, followed by a thud. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "Clear." The intruder, a hired thug, was unconscious, a burner phone in his pocket with a single contact. Ryan? I didn't know, but the fear was suffocating. Lena arrived with backup, hauling the thug away for questioning. "He's not talking yet," she said, "but his phone's a gold mine. We'll trace it." Exhausted, I collapsed on the safe house couch, the weight of the past month crushing me. Dad's death, Susan's letter, the trust fund, the attacks. It was too much. Mia came over, sneaking past security to bring me coffee and a hug. "You're not alone, Liv," she said, her voice fierce. "We're your family now." Her words pulled me back from the edge, reminding me why I'd fought so hard to build Horizon, not just for me, but for the people who believed in me. The Nexus deal was my lifeline. I met Victor in person at their San Francisco headquarters, a gleaming tower that screamed power. He offered champagne, but I stuck to water, my guard up. "Sign today, Olivia," he urged, sliding papers across the table. $75 million, 0 cents. Your team's safe. A board seat. It's a dream exit, but his eyes betrayed him. Too eager, too predatory. I stalled, citing legal reviews, and noticed a flick back at the safe house. Ethan hacked into Nexus's public servers, finding emails between Victor and an anonymous account discussing neutralizing Horizon's IP. They weren't just buying me out. They were planning to steal my tech. The court hearing loomed, a chance to stop my family's lawsuit and expose their lies. Michael prepped me relentlessly, drilling me on every detail of my childhood, my scholarships, Eleanor's legacy. "They'll play dirty," he warned. "Susan's claiming she paid for your Stanford tuition." I laughed, incredulous. "I earned a full ride. They didn't give me a dime." He nodded, pulling out Eleanor's letter detailing David's offshore accounts and Susan's attempts to siphon her mother's wealth. "This is our trump card," he said. "But it'll hurt." The morning of the hearing, I woke to a new text. "Court won't save you. Walk away." My hands shook, but I dressed in a sharp black suit, channeling Eleanor's steel. Marcus drove me to the San Francisco courthouse, scanning for tails. Inside, Susan, Claire, and Ryan sat with their lawyer, a smarmy Hartford type named Blackwell. Susan's eyes met mine, cold and unyielding, but Claire looked away, her hands twisting in her lap. Blackwell opened with a sob story. Susan and David had sacrificed everything for me, paying for tutors and computers, only for me to abandon them. Susan took the stand, dabbing at dry eyes. "Olivia promised to take care of us," she said. "We just want what's fair." It was a performance, and it made my skin crawl. Claire testified next, her voice trembling as she described her struggles: a failing influencer career, a risky pregnancy, a mortgage they couldn't pay. "Olivia's rich now," she said. "Why won't she help her family?" The judge, a stern woman named Judge Alvarez, took notes, her face unreadable. When our turn came, Michael dismantled their lives. He presented my Stanford scholarship records, bank statements showing no parental support, and Eleanor's letter exposing David's financial schemes. "The plaintiffs have a history of exploiting relatives," Michael said, revealing their $100,000 0 cents extortion of an aunt. Susan's face paled, and Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Then came the bombshell. Michael introduced the forged email Susan had claimed was my verbal contract. This document, he said, holding it up, was traced to a hacker linked to Ryan Carter's crypto network. The courtroom buzzed, and Ryan's jaw clenched. Judge Alvarez leaned forward. Mrs. Bennett, explain this discrepancy. Susan stammered, her composure cracking. Blackwell tried to object, but the judge shut him down. I see no evidence of a contract, she said. This case is dismissed as a frivolous attempt at financial gain. The gavel fell and relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. In the hallway, Susan grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. You humiliated us, she hissed. Was it worth it, dragging our name through the mud? For the first time, I saw her not as my mother, but as a stranger consumed by resentment. Why, Mom? I asked, my voice low. Why did you hate me for succeeding? Her eyes flickered with something raw. Shame, maybe. You never needed me, she said. Claire did. You made me feel useless. The admission stunned me, revealing a truth I'd never faced. Her love was a cage, given only to those who depended on her. Claire approached, tears streaming. Ryan made me do it, she whispered. He's got proof I helped him move money, dirty money. I'm scared, Liv. Her vulnerability cracked my armor. She was a pawn, just like me, caught in a game she didn't understand. I can't fix your life, I said, but I'll protect your kids. I promised trust funds for her unborn twins locked tight for their education, a gesture to break the cycle of greed. The victory was bittersweet. Back at my loft, now scrubbed clean of graffiti, I sat with Mia and Ethan, toasting to survival. But the shadows lingered. Lena called with news. The thug from the safe house had confessed to working for Ryan, who was now under FBI scrutiny for money laundering. Nexus's stock dipped after rumors of their shady deals leaked. Ethan's doing, I suspected. The trust fund was safe, frozen by Michael's injunction, but the photo of Eleanor's fire haunted me. Was Ryan behind it? Susan? Someone else? I didn't know, but I vowed to find out. A year later, I stood on a stage in Palo Alto, launching the Eleanor Bennett Foundation to mentor young women in tech. The crowd, hundreds of aspiring coders, my team, Mia, Ethan, cheered as I shared my story, not of betrayal, but of resilience. Your worth isn't in what others give you, I said, my voice steady. It's in what you build, what you fight for. Off stage, Claire waited, her twins in a stroller, her eyes cautious but hopeful. We weren't sisters yet, not fully, but we were starting. 2 women choosing a new path. As I stepped into the night, the fog lifted, revealing a sky full of stars. Eleanor's words echoed. Never let anyone dim your spark. I hadn't, and no one ever would again.